So I believe that you are on day 6 of an 8-day retreat. Some people joining in for a lot of it, other people squeezing in parts where they can with other commitments. But in any case, I'm sure that many of you have been applying a lot more energy and effort at the formal meditation practice, and also to listening and contemplating Dhamma. I thought that 2 relevant lists of Dhammas that might be helpful to have a look at is the 5 hindrances, because one of the things we're aspiring to, as well as developing mindfulness, clear comprehension, and wisdom, is samadhi, some peacefulness. And so Lord Buddha explains that the 5 hindrances are like robbers or bandits. They steal away the peacefulness. The other list that I would like to have a look at is the 5 factors of jhana, the kind of qualities that are associated with the mind collecting and gathering. So one of the reasons it's good to review the list of the 5 hindrances is because the nature of being ignorant as to ultimate truth is that the mind becomes affected by delusion. And the problem with delusion is that when it's affecting the mind, we are deluded. So it's often the case that the mind will be experiencing some delusion, and we're not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm deluded. Oftentimes with delusion, there's a feeling of it being right. So this is the problem. It deludes the mind becomes clouded, and then various thought proliferations start occurring, and we're attached to them, we identify with them, we believe them, and unfortunately that wastes a lot of time. So fortunately for us, Lord Buddha did give us many different lists of Dhammas which are helpful to help us recognize deluding qualities and recognize and cultivate wholesome ones. So the first is the sensual craving. So when you come to sit, you're trying to be with your awareness of in and out breathing, and the thought might come up, I want more sleep. I want to go and delight in the relaxation of sleeping as a kind of a craving. I want to go and get a cappuccino. I'm feeling a bit tired. I need a brownie. They're the more mild forms. When one thing to be really careful of course, is when the mind begins to experience some collectedness, 5 minutes of peacefulness, some clarity, extra energy, then unfortunately the fantasizing mind gets more powerful and fantasies can become more fun. So you might start having all sorts of proliferations about the fun things you might do on your next holiday, the restaurant you're going to go to, and obviously sexual craving is a very powerful kilesa. So this is something to try to be mindful of, because what happens is the mind begins to get some peacefulness, fantasizing mind comes up, and all of the good energy gets channeled into the fantasy, and then you'll find that there's no peacefulness and you'll have to start again, because the hindrances do steal the peacefulness and they steal the energy. So when we experience sensual craving, what we have to do is just notice it. At this stage, it's not possible not to experience it. So you don't have to beat yourself up for having these things. Sensual craving is, we can understand it as being normal, ordinary. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to cultivate something extraordinary, something better, something transcendent. So the way to relate to sensual craving in the meditation experience is simply to know it and then try not to feed it. and then allow it to fall away by itself. Sometimes these things are very painful. So sometimes we can be sitting there noting, being aware, wanting to let go, and we can't yet. But at least we have enough mindfulness to know that the mind is affected by a hindrance, and we do have a certain amount of determination that we are going to put it down as soon as we can. Another thing to remind the mind when some kind of fantasy about the carrot cake, the brownie, whatever it is, the cappuccino, just remind yourself, Lord Buddha has explained to us that if we are consistent with our meditation object, qualities such as rapture and tranquility will arise. So rather than be fascinated with something outside, get really determined, not in a tense way, maybe a better word might be interested. Get interested. Is it really true that if I consistently pay attention to my meditation object with faith in Lord Buddha's teachings, in the meditation object itself, and in my abilities, if I'm very diligent, if I really just keep giving the interest to knowing the beginning, the middle, the end of an in-breath, keeping the present moment body-based awareness in the same space, in the space between the in and out breath, and then knowing all of the feelings involved with the out breath, the beginning, middle, and end, if you really can be consistent, caring for the breath, being interested in the breath, is it true? Does rapture arise? Does tranquility arise? And it should. It will. Perhaps not every time, but at least sometimes. And we have to, it's a bit of a wrestle. Okay, I'm going to trust the Buddha and giving myself to this practice. For this period of time, I am going to give the interest to the meditation object. The second hindrance is the irritation and aversion. So there's a lot of crossover, naturally, when talking about truth in these lists. In the Four Noble Truths, the cause of suffering is the three types of craving. Craving for, second craving is craving for becoming, the third one is craving not for. So in these five hindrances, the first one we have the craving for, and the second one we have the craving not for. Irritation, aversion, anger, and in its most gross and dangerous form, hatred. So how does this affect the meditation? Maybe there's some noises you don't like. Maybe there's pain in the body, and that's already some suffering. But then we add our aversion to the pain. The mind loves to rehash old grudges. Another thing to be careful of, the mind's just beginning to get some clarity, some energy. A memory comes up, a thought about the way something hurt your feelings in the past, and you can get the long spiel about why they shouldn't have done that, why they were wrong to have done that. My ex-husband should have treated me better. My children should have treated me better. My mother should have treated me better, blah, 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 blah. You've heard it all before. And when we meditate, we get more clarity. This can take a lot of energy away. We can pick old scabs and get right in there, and we can get even more clarity and even more confidence, even more self-assuredness, self-righteousness about why I'm right and why they're wrong. Unfortunately, this is not going to liberate you from samsara, and it's not going to lead to peaceful mind states either. So we have to recognize these habits, as I said, ordinary, normal. We have to recognize them quickly because we're trying for something transcendent, extraordinary. We're engaging in practices that will lead, Lord Buddha assures us, to heaven and beyond. So getting contentious with old grudges, picking them up again, this is coming to the human realm at best, possibly one of the lower realms, the more demonic realms, or the animal realm, the kind of dogfighting realm. So we don't want to go there. We want to go to heaven and beyond. So we set the strong intention. When irritation and aversion come up, I recognize it for what it is. We were talking the other day a little bit about using metta practice as a powerful antidote, replacement by opposites. In the times when strong aversion comes up in the mind, we aim loving kindness at this conventional sentient being who is currently suffering. And you cultivate the loving kindness with such sincerity that that becomes the object in the mind, and then naturally other objects fall away. This is a very powerful, important samatha practice that supports us in the cultivation of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And Lord Buddha explains that for those who cultivate metta in the Benefits of Loving Kindness Sutta, the mind becomes peaceful easily. So we recognize craving for, we recognize craving not for, and we try to just allow them to arise, stay for some time and cease, understand their nature, and try not to make more karma with them. After this, we have the sloth and torpor. So this can manifest as quite heavy sleepiness, and it's literally falling asleep on the meditation cushion. That's the most coarse expression of it. But then those feelings of dullness, cloudiness, fuzziness, this is of course normal. All of the 5 hindrances are normal. The issue is, how do we work with them? So if it is arising in the mind, we do have to put up a bit of a struggle to try to not let it fully invade and take over the mind. So it really depends on how coarse it is. If the mind's really, really groggy and sleepy, then Lord Buddha actually suggested going and splashing the face with cold water and going and looking at the bright sky, like letting in brightness and waking the mind up. If it's less coarse, if it's more just like dullness, and there is some awareness of the dullness, one of the ways that I've practiced with it, which I found works at least for myself, is that you apply the degree to which you have mindful awareness to knowing the feelings associated with sleepiness. So where is the dullness? Where is the fullness? What does it feel like? It's often in the head. It's a sense of heaviness in the body. So you just gently keep applying the mindful awareness to knowing the feelings associated with dullness, fuzziness. And in my experience, the dullness and the fuzziness kind of evaporates, kind of dissolves under the influence of if it's like a cloud or a fog or a mist, under the influence of the sunshine of the mindfulness, it evaporates. But one has to keep consistently and gently just knowing. And it's okay in a period in the day when you're doing many hours of meditation, there are going to be periods where the mind is agitated, and there's going to be periods when the mind's a bit dull. This is okay. And we don't have to try to sit like a Buddha statue. Ajahn Anan told me once, the meditators who he finds most scary as a teacher, as a meditation master, is the ones that sit ramrod straight all the time. That's an interesting observation and statement from a meditation master. Why may that be? Because the person is bringing a lot of self into the act of trying to appear to be the perfect meditator. And it's more self, more pride, not an easy situation to work with. So it's actually okay when the mind's a bit sleepy to slouch a little bit, but not to fall into sleep. Just know those feelings. And with the awareness, washing them out of the mind, waking the mind up. I was meditating once under the Bodhi tree during a period of time when I was doing 10 hours of meditation a day. And I was practicing with this really heavy sleepiness, but I wasn't asleep. I was kind of bent over like that. And I was okay with it. I was just like, wow, this is heavy, but I'll just keep working with it, And apparently a bhikkhuni, probably I think from Korea or Taiwan, came and grabbed me from behind and straightened me up, because she was so offended by my not perfectly straight meditation posture. And I was very embarrassed, because we're not supposed to touch women, and we're not supposed to be touched by women. And there was a sense of boundaries having been transgressed. But in terms of that meditation session, it was very helpful, because I blushed, and there was this awareness of hot feelings around my face, and all of the sleepiness was gone. And the rest of the meditation progressed very nicely. But it's okay to be working in the process of meditation. It's okay to be working with, maybe if there's a lot of pain in the heart, you can be bent over slightly while you're practicing loving kindness, and there's a lot of sleepiness, you can feel what that's like. But the point is, you're applying the awareness to know what it feels like, and working with the hindrance to try to weaken it and let it go when the mindfulness gains enough momentum. So the fourth hindrance is, and also if you find that every time you sit, you fall asleep, then there's other things. I mean, we don't want to be wasting time. We have limited time. We want to be using our time skillfully. So if it's the case that every time you sit, you're falling asleep, you need to experiment. So I would recommend 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour of vigorous, loud, fast chanting before the meditation. And do something to really wake up and energize the mind. Don't just sit there and fall asleep. Or walk for half an hour first, so that you get a sense of present moment, body-based awareness, consistent in the body. And then you bring that to the act of sitting. So put up a bit of a struggle and make sure you're working with it. The fourth one is restlessness and worry. All sorts of the ways that, many of us have things that we have to try to be responsible for in our life. That's normal. And sometimes it's a bit of a conundrum. We don't know what we're going to do about this issue at work. We don't know what we're going to do about this issue with the family. Or maybe there's nothing we can do, but it's just a painful issue. So the mind gets obsessed with it and mulls over it and won't let it go. So again, it wastes time, unfortunately. So we need to recognize these hindrances. If restlessness and worry is in the mind, various ways that I work with it is I say to the mind, okay, you can think about this after the meditation. I know, yes, I recognize there's some relative importance. It's okay, but this is the time to meditate. We're going to establish clarity and presence of mind now. Then go and think about the problem with more clarity. Sometimes you have to make a deal with it. Come back in half an hour, come back in 45 minutes. Good idea, come back. It's like talking to the inner secretary. File that one, get back to me later. I do this myself all the time. It's another one of the tricks, isn't it? It's like beginning to have a good meditation, and then there's an actual genuine good idea. Now that's a good idea. Even the good ideas, if you're trying to cultivate right mindfulness and right collectedness, you have to be able to say to the good ideas, come back later. This is the meditation time. Again, going back to the metta practice, if there's anxiety or worry, there's a being there who has some suffering, replace a negative object with a wholesome object. Ajahn Anan stressed this in the earlier years of my practice a lot. Do 5 to 10 minutes of metta practice at the beginning of every sitting meditation, Ajahn suggested, because it pacifies the hindrances. It establishes some well-being. The mind is more likely to be content to be with the meditation object. So if there's things that are making us anxious and there's nothing we can do about it, we can have loving kindness for ourselves. We can fill the body and mind with feelings of goodwill, unconditional love, and support the mind-body phenomenon through the painful experience. It also produces merits, good karma, and that is more likely to bring solutions into our life, actually. The fifth of the hindrances is doubt. So this can manifest in any number of ways. You doubt the Buddha was really enlightened. You doubt there's any arahants left. You doubt the contents of the suttas. You doubt the teacher who's speaking to you right now, whatever it is. Most of you who are joining the retreat of Ajahn Anan will have faith in the Buddha, will have faith in the Dhamma, will have faith that there are arahants. And so that may not be where most of your doubts manifest, but they might manifest in areas such as, I wonder if this is the right meditation method for me. And so one thing that Ajahn Anan has said, it's not so much the meditation method. in my younger years living here at Wat Map Ajahn Ajah's monastery, I was translating quite often for foreigners, and they would often ask, is this meditation method the right method for me? What do you recommend for me? And Ajahn would usually answer, it's not the method. The method is what supports you in cultivating the mindfulness. So whatever method helps you to be mindful, and then you try to be consistent with your mindfulness. That's the issue. The issue is, it's not that the method is wrong. Oftentimes it's just that the person isn't doing it enough yet for their mindfulness to have become a good mindfulness while using the method. And then the person hasn't been consistent. They might be diligent for a period of time, and then they slack off. They might try that method for a while and then try another one. So there's a consistency issue. So if we have faith in the Buddha, and Ajahn would usually say that Anapanasati is what Lord Buddha said, the crown jewel in the crown of all meditation methods. It's the right method for everybody. It works for everybody. Some people, Longta Mahabua used to teach the Buddho as a recitation rather than being with the feelings of the breath. For some people that works. We can experiment, but normally most people get good results from trying to be with the awareness of the in and out breathing. Some people use the Buddha with that. I myself do, breathing in Bud, breathing out Do. The reason I use the Buddha is because it gently helps to keep the mind with the meditation object. Just that little bit of thinking activity. Because if we don't have that, the mind is much more likely to run off into thinking. So you notice when the Buddha isn't there, okay, if you train yourself with having a recollection word, they call it parikama in Pali, mantra in the Mahayana Vajrayana, use syllables associated with, in Buddha is synonymous with the Lord Buddha, awake, aware, liberated through practicing right mindfulness. So it has all these wonderful associations. So when we're picking up Buddha, we're picking up our determination, our aspiration to be awake, aware, present, and liberated through practicing mindfulness. So that's very helpful. And if there's a lot of thinking, you can do Buddho, Dhammo, Sangho in the in-breath, Buddho, Dhammo, Sangho in the out-breath. And then when the thinking lessens, breathing in Buddho, breathing out Dhammo. When the thinking is even less and there's more peacefulness, breathing in Put, breathing out Do. When the mind gets really peacefulness, the Buddha falls away by itself. There's various ways that we can practice. Sometimes when there's irritation and aversion to pain, what we can do is we can count breaths. One of the things Ajahn Sumedho used to do, he was practicing with a painful phenomenon, sometimes related to feelings in the body, sometimes related to irritating mental phenomenon. And he would just have this sense, he told me that the voice would come up in his mind, I just can't stand this for another second. And then he would say to himself, 1. Just to challenge that voice in the mind. No, I really can't stand it for 1 more second. And you go, 1, 2. Not believing it. And then one thing we can do is we can use the breath. There's pain in the knee. I really, really want to move. Give yourself permission to move after 5 breaths. Breathing in 1, breathing out 2. 1, breathing in 1, breathing out 1, breathing in 2, breathing out 2. Oftentimes when you get to 5, the pain subsided a bit. It's okay, you can sit a bit longer. And then the pain comes up again. And this is really, really helpful because what you notice is the way the pain swells up, rises, looks like it's going to become unbearable, and then it calms down again. That feeling in the mind comes up, I can't stand this, I can't stand this. The pain gets less, you can stand it. That feeling goes away. Next time, painful feeling, once you've seen that a few times, more pain comes up. Okay, I can't stand it. Okay, 6 breaths. You begin to trust your ability to be with pain, become less reactive, less compulsive, and you can say, okay, you can. I'm going to give you permission to move 10 breaths. If after 10 breaths you don't need to move, keep just staying still. Keep with the mindfulness, keep with the meditation object, and notice the way that these things arise, stay for some time, change and cease. Oftentimes when I was talking the other day about doing the longer meditation sessions, you set the clock in front of you, 45 minutes, not moving. After 45 minutes, wriggle a bit, let the blood flow through the legs, squeeze the shoulders, whatever you need to do. Set yourself up again and sit for another hour. Once there is some collectedness and presence of mind, then we apply that. We don't just get up and go to the fridge, get up and check our WhatsApp line and start watching YouTube. To train in, when we've got the clarity, apply the clarity, sit for longer. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about the five factors of jhana. Even before I go into that, we have to acknowledge that it's really important not to get too much desire mind for jhanas. First hindrance, craving. And what happens is if you, okay, I've got this list of 5 dhammas, now I'm going to go and get my jhanas. And what happens is you apply yourself diligently with a lot of hope and a lot of faith. And then if you don't get them, what happens? So I don't even want to hear about the 5 factors of jhana. It doesn't work for me. It's like, I would like to reframe it. Given that experiencing jhana samadhi is not common in this day and age, let's reframe this list as meaning qualities that support the arising of some peacefulness. So even if it's kanika samadhi, that is samadhi, 5 minutes of peacefulness. If it's upajjhara samadhi, 20 minutes of peacefulness, it's all samadhi. What we do is we bring about the degree of peacefulness that we can. And it's very important actually that we practice contentment and gratitude for that peacefulness, and that we have patience. We have to be much more interested in diligently sowing the causes than trying to get the fruit quickly. I wish it was the case that desire and willfulness could give rise to jhana, because we'd all have it and it'd be wonderful. But willfulness and desire doesn't give rise to jhana. What gives rise to jhana, meaning appana samadhi? I prefer to use the word collectedness rather than concentration, because what happens is the mind is being restrained from flowing outwards. And when the mind is being restrained from flowing outwards, it settles and it gathers. Now, this is simply a matter of not allowing the mind to flow out into thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future, thoughts about other people, feelings associated with craving for or craving not for, and simply not doing that. Coming back, being with the breath, being with the meditation object, coming back, being with the meditation object, coming back, doing some investigation, keeping the mindfulness and clear comprehension within the parameters of the body and mind. Then what happens is the energy which has normally been flowing out of the sense spaces stops flowing out of the sense spaces, and you'll notice that's when these feelings of rapture, tranquility, coolness, fullness manifest in the mind. That's actually the nature of the mind when it's not being dissipated. It's very important to understand that. If you just allow the mind to be in the present moment, in the body, contentedly, feelings of rapture, well-being, tranquility, and bliss arise. This is actually a wonderful positive affirmation about what a mind really is and what your potential really is. So, understanding that we might not get jhana, because I remember when I was a junior monk and I really tried and it didn't happen for a period of time. I didn't want to hear the word jhana, didn't want to know about the 5 factors of jhana, don't even talk about it, because I'd set myself up in this painful dynamic where I'm so determined I'm going to get it, and then I didn't get it. So what do you do with that? Well, you practice contentment, patience, sow the causes, don't give up. And we all can experience some peacefulness if we practice correctly. And then I found it enormously helpful to be grateful for that peacefulness and to be content with it. And in my experience, that attitude was conducive to having longer periods of peacefulness and deeper peacefulness. And so the first one is Witaka. It's like placing the mind on the meditation object. So it is important to understand when you come to sit that you're going to be working with a meditation object. And some people try to work with like broad awareness, just come and sit and try to be mindful of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. In my experience, that for beginning level practitioners, that doesn't work. It's because the mindfulness is not yet established enough to see clearly those 4 foundations. In the beginning stages, we have to work with meditation objects. And then what you may find is if you can consistently be with the feeling of the breathing, after 10, 15 minutes, the sense of awareness, the sense of presence of mind gets broader, more established, and then it becomes possible to be aware of a thought as a thought, a feeling as a feeling, body as body, etc. But it is important to train with meditation objects in the beginning stages. These other practices we hear about, Dzogchen, Mahamudra, is, the way I understand it, is by the way they were taught to advanced practitioners. They weren't taught to immediate, intermediate, and beginning level practitioners. In Pali, I think we would call it Mahasati. When a seasoned practitioner who has done tens of thousands of hours of meditation ends up with a quality of mindfulness which is very, very vast and very, very powerful. That practitioner can just take that awareness as their object and observe everything that arises and ceases within mindfulness. It is a valid practice, but we need to understand it's an advanced practice. So at first, we practice with meditation objects, and when we come to do our meditation, we actually make it clear, what is my meditation object going to be? And then we try to be with it, because otherwise these hindrances are going to come in. You're going to be doubting, what's this meditation object I'm working with? And then thoughts about other things are going to come into it. So we set the intention. For myself, normally I will do loving kindness for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll be aware of the breath. Normally when I practice breath awareness, I practice knowing the feelings in the area of the chest. For myself, I found that watching feelings associated with breath near the nose, it was too close to the head for me. It's very easy to go from there into thinking. And I found that when it was more in the body, I got better results with that. This is different for different people. We experiment. Some people can feel the breath more consistently in the abdomen area, some people in the chest area, some people on the lip, tip of the nose, some people the entire breath body, nose, chest, abdomen. We experiment. The point is, where can you feel the breath most consistently, most easily? Which is the method, or which is the place where you can feel the feelings of breathing most consistently and where some peacefulness arises? And then we take that as the place where we observe it. So that's when we're placing the intention and placing the awareness on the meditation object. And then the vichara is allowing the mind to settle on that. So it's kind of Witaka, placing it, vichara, staying with it. And very important to understand here that we don't squeeze the meditation object, we don't control the breath. It's difficult in as much as it's subtle. The subtlety is the part that's hard. People get determined to be aware of the breath, and then they kind of squeeze the breath. There's a sense of self, which is going to be mindful of breathing. And actually, we need the aspiration to get samadhi. We need the aspiration to be liberated to get us to the cushion. Once we're on the cushion, we have to drop the desire and we have to drop the controlling. This is the tricky part. It's like, okay, I need aspiration. I need some desire. I need clear intentions to be with my meditation object. Once I'm on the meditation object, okay, drop the desire, just be with the object with a gentle and consistent approach. It's tricky, but you can do it. Basically, a lot of meditation is how we work it out. You just meditate more and you realize, yeah, too much contractedness doesn't work. You meditate and you realize, yeah, too much desire doesn't work. Just do it with a gentle but firm consistency. What happens is when we can be consistently with the breath, with the meditation. So sometimes it's breath, sometimes it's contemplation of death and impermanence, sometimes it's metta, sometimes it's contemplation of elements, when we decide that we're going to do a practice, we try to stick within the parameters of that practice. That's what makes it a genuine reflective meditation, an anusati. If you sit there and you start thinking about death a bit, and then you do a bit of metta, and then you start to do think about the parts of the body, it's a kind of it's not really meditation. It's a kind of thinking about wise subjects, but not in a focused way. So we set the intention. Okay, I'm going to do, for myself, I'm going to do 5 minutes of metta, then I'm going to do the breath. If the mind becomes peaceful, good. When it comes out of the peacefulness, I'm going to investigate parts of the body. That might be a normal way that I would approach a 2-hour session of meditation. For yourselves, you make the decision. I'm going to try to be with the breath. Maybe some theme that Ajahn talked about that you would like to consider. Then I'm going to contemplate that theme. If it's death, awareness of death, you try to keep the reflective thoughts simply in that channel of thoughts associated with the ways that you might die or people who you've known who've died, etc. What happens is if we are consistently with the meditation object, some feelings of rapture arise. So that can be hair standing on end, tears streaming down the eyes with sometimes on Buddhanusati, I can get kind of those results with Buddhanusati. When I just think with how grateful I am to Lord Buddha for giving us these Four Noble Truths and these meditation practice and these recommendations to keep precepts, when I think of what may have become of this mind-body phenomenon had I not met the Buddha's teachings, and it's a bit of a worry, then naturally I feel tremendous gratitude that I found these teachings and I surrendered to them to some degree and experience a lot more contentment and well-being and faith than I used to. And I naturally just feel love and gratitude to the Buddha for that. And if I focus on that, what the Bodhisattva sacrificed, all of those lives invested into millions of lives after he could have been liberated, that he invested in being able to help us, then naturally feelings of gratitude and love and respect come up. And that can be a very helpful samatha practice before being with the breath. But if we're genuinely with our meditation object, some kind of a feeling of, it's like a pleasant mental feeling, contentment, mental happiness, gladness, that's the result. And then this goes deeper then into tranquility. So we have Witaka, placing the mind on the object, Vichara, staying with the object, Piti, rapture, Passaddhi, tranquility. So I remember going to Ajahn and complaining once that I didn't experience much tranquility. I'd just come and meditate, and after 20 minutes, the mind would kind of feel spacious and cool, but nothing exciting was happening. And Ajahn Anan said, no, it's good. It's gone straight into tranquility. It kind of skipped over the rapture, but it went into tranquility. It's fine. And so we can have doubts about our experience because we're kind of, in some respects, I think we're expecting something exciting. And sometimes we might underestimate the value of what it's like to simply have a fairly still, cool, and calm mind. That's a really good thing. And what happens is if we can stay with a fairly cool, spacious, cool, and calm mind, is that deepens and deepens and deepens and can become a very profoundly peaceful. But one has to stay with it, keep staying with it. With regards putting the mind, keeping the mind on the object, Lompocha said it's given the example of a chicken under a chicken coop in northeast Thailand. They have these rattan kind of covers. He says, you don't come and try to hold the chicken and force the chicken to sit. That doesn't work. Chicken's going to be not happy. What you do is you place the coop over the chicken, and the chicken kind of wanders around and scratches around and pecks around, but you don't let the chicken go out of the coop. And what happens is the chicken kind of sits down by itself. I have found this a very helpful analogy. This is going to come back, keeping with the breath, come back, and then at a certain point, the mind settles on the breath. But if we force it too much, brittleness can arise in the mind, and might get some peacefulness, but the peacefulness can kind of shatter easily, and then we can get irritated. Something shattered our peacefulness. So you want to go for a content and spacious coolness, which isn't too much controlling. And the final one is the ekagata, which is the one-pointedness. And I think a better translation for this word ekagata is probably stillness. It just means that peacefulness became the mind's object. The mind became still, and the mind is content to be with stillness. But it's not the idea of one-pointedness. Again, it has connotations of squeezing and controlling. It's not like that. The mind was content with its meditation object to the point that it picked up the meditation object with contentness, gladness, rapture, tranquility. The mind became so peacefulness then that the peacefulness became the object of meditation. So it's good to know how it progresses, and it's good to notice, is there any rapture arising? Is there any tranquility arising? If there isn't, am I clear about what my meditation object is? Am I doing things that will support the arising of peacefulness? Ajahn Anan encouraged me to do a lot of metta practice as a junior monk. Our Lord Buddha clearly says, for those who have loving kindness, the mind becomes peaceful easily. One of the things Ajahn said in his talk last night is, in the beginning stages of practice, it can sometimes feel like we have more kilesa than we used to have. And Ajahn was saying that the kilesa has always been there, but when we come to meditate, we begin to notice it. And one has to have a lot of patience and a lot of consistency and a lot of determination. Another thing that happens is when we meditate, the mind gets more sensitive. It's like taking a magnifying glass and having a look inside our minds. It can seem like there's more unskillfulness in there now than there used to be. That's probably not the case. What is the case is there's more clarity with regards to what is wholesome and unwholesome. And we're seeing it more clearly. I remember when I was a novice 26 years ago in the middle of the rainy season retreat, been trying to put effort into practice and it hadn't been going very well. And I basically decided I was going to disrobe. And it was a month before the end of the rainy season. And I didn't shave my eyebrows. So we monks in Thailand, we shave our hair and we shave our eyebrows. And the reason I didn't shave my eyebrows is because when I was planning to disrobe in a month's time, I was interested in finding a romantic partner. And I thought that having eyebrows might be helpful. And I thought that not having eyebrows wouldn't be helpful. So anyway, I was sweeping leaves around Ajahn Pasano's kuti 26 years ago. And he said, "Hey, Nenachalo, you forgot to shave your eyebrows." And I said, "Well, Lumpur, actually, I didn't forget. I've been meaning to tell you, I'll be disrobing after Pansa. I'll be disrobing in a month." And he's like, "What? Why are you going to disrobe?" And I said, "Well, I look at some of the other monks studying suttas, learning the 40-minute Patimokkha chant in 6 weeks. And I'm still kind of like sitting there kind of having sexual fantasies. I was 22 at the time. And I'm like, I'm not reading suttas. And I'm really glad I did it for this period of time, but I don't think I'm cut out to be a monk." And Lompo Pasano said to me, "Well, were you having these thoughts a year ago?" "Oh yeah, of course I was." I said, "Well, did you think that they were evil and did you hate yourself for having those thoughts a year ago?" "No, I didn't." And he says, "So actually there's been growth. You now have more clarity about what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. And you now actually want to do something about it. And I think you're doing fine. And you just need to drop the time frame and stop comparing yourself to others and keep sowing the causes." And that was enormously helpful to me because I was doubting, talking about the doubt hindrance, I was doubting my ability. Somebody wiser than me could see that I was making good efforts. And he says, "You're doing fine, just keep going." And that little vote of confidence helped. And then he says, "Achalo, go and shave your eyebrows." And I'm like, "Okay, Lompo, Kap." So that was 26 years ago. So if I were to believe those doubts, and if I were to have acted on the normal energies of having some sexual desire as a 22-year-old, then I would not have made it to be Achalo Bhikkhu Jalko Nachalo 25 years later. So we have to not believe our doubts. We have to keep applying our energy gently and consistently. And then we learn about how our mind works. We learn which methods work for us. And then we develop more faith in our abilities as well as Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So I rejoice in your efforts. And It's been my pleasure to support Ajahn in teaching the online retreat. Of course, a good number of you I'm seeing on my screen, I know you as well. I rejoice in your practice and I wish you every success. May you recognize the 5 hindrances and more quickly and learn skills in abandoning them. And may you develop the 5 factors of jhana, experience right collectedness, peacefulness as a foundation for developing temporary liberations and stream entry, paths and fruits until nibbana. May you succeed in your practice.